All right, today we are covering section 3.2. This is over matrix multiplication, and then we'll go into augmented matrices. So when we decide that we are multiplying some matrices, we have to see if that's even possible based on the order of our matrices. And then we'll go into how we can use these on the graphing calculators. So to begin with here, matrix multiplication, this is our size rule. So if we are multiplying matrix A times matrix B, we have to make sure that the columns for A match the number of rows for B. So if I look at these two matrices I have here, my first one, let's call that A, is a 2 by 2 matrix. My next one here, we'll call it B, is a 2 by 3 matrix. We need these two to match in the way for them to be able to be multiplied. So the number of columns for A has to match the rows for B. So we always think about the inside numbers. These two match. They're both 2's. So we know that we can multiply them. And then it comes to the outside number. So this leftover 2 out here and this leftover 3 out here, that becomes the answer for the order of the solution. So always looking at rows and columns for each matrix. The columns of your first one has to match the rows of the second one. The leftover numbers on the outside become the order of your answer. So just to make that make a little more sense, let's go into some examples here. So I look at my first one here, 2 by 2 matrix, 2 rows, 2 columns, 2 by 2 matrix. The inside numbers match, so yes, we can multiply. And then we have our leftovers out here on the outside, 2 and 2. So it is a 2 by 2 answer for the order of that solution. All right, here on number 2, we have a 2 by 2 matrix and a 2 by 2 matrix. This is going to be the same as the one we just talked about. These inside numbers match. So yes, multiplication is possible. The 2's on the outside become the order of the solution. All right, on number 3, I have 3 rows by 2 columns for my first one. Then on my second one, I have 2 rows by 2 columns. Inside numbers match, so yes, I can multiply. It is possible. And now my leftovers on the outside, 3 and 2. So the order of my solution would be a 3 by 2 matrix. So remember, the numbers on the inside must match. Then what's left over on the outside becomes the order of the solution. All right, on to number 4. It is a 3 row, 2 column. And the second one is also a 3 row, 2 column matrix. If we look at our inside numbers, they do not match. So multiplication is not possible, and we won't even have a solution. So all these others, my answers have matched inside the boxes, 2 and 2, 2 and 2, 2 and 2. But here it's a 2 and a 3, does not match, cannot multiply. All right, and number 5, I have a 3 by 3 matrix, and I am trying to multiply it with a 3 by 2 matrix. Inside numbers, in this case, they are both 3's, so yes, we can multiply. If we look at what is left over on the outsides, I have a 3 and I have a 2, so the order of my answer is 3 by 2. So making sure you're finding your middle two numbers, those inside numbers, they have to match. The ones on the outside become your order of your solution. Okay, we will be going into some matrix multiplication and using our calculators to actually find how to multiply. I will be making a separate video with the graphing calculator instructions on this, and then we'll go through some of these examples on our notes using that graphing calculator. So I'm going to skip ahead to augmented matrices, and we're going to look at how we set up the augmented matrices, and that will help us when we go into 3.3 with solving later on. So first of all, we need to look at an augmented matrix. This is just a matrix of numbers that each row will represent constants from one equation, and each column represents the coefficients for variables. So we're going to start using these to solve systems of equations in section 3.3. For right now, though, we are just setting up the matrices. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up. We want to think about all of our x values and those coefficients going in the column, all of the y values and those coefficients going in a column, and all the z coefficients in a column. And then we're going to have kind of our little dotted line here because we have our equal sign. And then at the other end, we're going to have all the constants. Okay. So we are leaving variables out of this completely. We are just worried about the numbers and those coefficients. Okay. So if I look, I have a 1, I have a 2, and I have a 1. Here in front of y, I have a 1, I have a -1, and I have a 2. And in front of z, I have a -1, a 1, and a 3. On my constants on the right side, -2, -5, and 4. So we can see now that this represents what we have in this system up above. We have 1x plus 1y minus 1z equals -2. 2x minus 1y plus 1z equals -5. 1x, oh, and I forgot my negative, minus 2y plus 3z equals 4. So we're just setting it up using the coefficients. We really want to make sure that we are paying attention to where these actually line up, okay? I'm going to go ahead and fill in my constants. I have a 9, I have a 4, and I have a 13. If I look at my first equation though, I have y and then z, but there's no x value in this one, where my other two equations have x's and those coefficients. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 in place of the x because it's like 0x. The x coefficient isn't there, but we have to have that space filler so that we have a full matrix. The 5 is from the y, and the -3 is from the z. Now, I'm going to go to my next one. -4 from x, 8 from y, -1 from z. And last one, 3 from x, -2 from y, and 6 from z. So make sure that you're not like leaving that top left corner blank. Really make sure that you are putting that 0 in place of x, and that you're placing the 5 and the -3 in the correct positions for your other equations to line up with each of those variables. All right, and my last one. Constants on the right, 1, 2, and 0. I have a 1, I have a -1, and I have a -1 for 1x, -1y, and -1z. I have a 2x, a 3y, and a 1z. And then last I have a 3x, I have a 2y, and there's no z, so I'm going to go ahead and put that 0 there as my placeholder. So we can see how we are setting up our augmented matrices. We will be adding on to this in section 3.3 and actually solving these systems of equations using our calculators with our different matrix operations. I will be making another video with some graphing calculator information to fill in these last 5 questions, so make sure that you are getting caught up on that as well.